If you go for LEED certification on a project, you get points for two things: for where you locate your neighborhood, is it compact and walkable and mixed use, and do you have access to public transportation. And as we discussed earlier, you need a certain degree of density in order to make public transportation viable. For either the bus or bus rapid transit, you need at least 7 dwelling units per acre. And to make light rail viable, you need at least 15 dwelling units per acre. One approach to public transit is a planning approach known as transit-oriented development, TOD. And this is development where the neighborhood is built around a transit stop and adjacent to public transit lines. So what this means is that if you live in one of these transit-oriented development neighborhoods, it's easy to get places. There's frequent, usually light rail, sometimes bus rapid transit service, frequent service, walkable neighborhoods that are compact, they're mixed use, easy to get around without cars. And two examples in Oregon are Orenco Station, which is a transit-oriented development in Hillsboro, and the South Waterfront District in Portland, which has LEED for cities, formerly LEED Neighborhood Development certification. The opposite of that is a thing called a transit desert. This is similar to the idea you may have heard, a food desert, where a neighborhood has no access to healthy food. In a transit desert, a neighborhood has no access to public transit. You have many residents who depend on transit, but you have poor transit surface. And these people may be dependent on transit because they're too young or too old to drive. Oftentimes it's because they can't afford cars. They may have disabilities also. What often happens in cities is that as the downtown gentrifies, low-income people can no longer afford to live downtown, and so they are pushed to outlying areas where rents are cheaper, but they're farther away from everything, far away from stores, far away from jobs. You can only get places by driving, but if you're poor, you can't afford cars. Or the flip side, what can happen is the downtown stays reasonably affordable, but the jobs move out to these sprawling country club looking suburbs. A prime example of that is actually Hillsboro near Portland. So the jobs move out to these suburbs. You can only reach them with cars, and if you're a low-income person living downtown, you can't get there. So this is a situation called a transit desert. When planners and developers propose a project that they say will bring jobs, a question you might ask about social equity is, can I get it? Can I get there? Can I get in? What you're asking is, can I get it? Am I qualified for the jobs there? Have I had training that makes me able to apply for these jobs? But can I get there? Is there public transportation that I can afford? Can I get there? And can I get in? Am I from a group that maybe is a minority? And is this a place where only certain groups of people are valued, and I'm not in one of those groups, so I'm not welcome there? So we need to think about all of these things. Can I get it? Can I get there? Can I get in? When we're thinking about social equity and development and where a neighborhood is located and whether it has public transit. Now, to turn that around, if you're in a place that has lots and lots of cars, everybody has a car, and what you're worried about as a planner is these cars are all releasing carbon emissions and contributing to greenhouse gas concentration. And now your goal is how to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicle trips. A tool that planners use to reduce the number of vehicle trips with single occupants is called Transportation Demand Management, or TDM. It's a set of tools for changing travel behavior. TDM is common in some cities and many colleges and universities. And it has a whole set of strategies. They include high-quality public transit with coverage over a broad range of neighborhoods. It needs to be either free or subsidized public transit so that low-income people can afford it, and maybe disincentives for driving cars. Some colleges they charge fees for parking in a parking lot, not to students who are low income, but to workers. And then if you don't park in the parking lot, you get a rebate. Maybe carpooling programs or van pooling programs, safe bicycle routes, and places to safely store your bicycle with showers when you get there, guarantees of emergency rides home if you've taken a bicycle, maybe changes in employment, so a compressed work week where instead of working 5 days a week, maybe you work 4 10s. Maybe you can work remotely, you can telecommute. And of course, our old friend, walkable mixed-use compact development.